every one of you for coming tonight. It's a great turnout.
Sorry, you can pay us later.
Just going to introduce Amy and Lynette a little bit more than Sharon did earlier. I met them back in September last year at an AGO meeting that was being held on behalf of Michael House in Boston, which is where I actually live and volunteer at. They do a lot of fundraising for homelessness and other pieces in Bournemouth, Bournemouth area. They're actually really amazing girls, okay? And I've had the pleasure of working with them over the last, I don't know, couple of months now, I suppose, doing outreach projects, working in street kitchens, which they're going to actually tell you a little bit more about themselves. And before I come up, I've just got a little bit of scripture to read from Isaiah, which was, I believe, my piece of scripture. The Spirit of the Sovereign Lord is on me, because the Lord has anointed me to preach good news to the poor. He has sent me to bind up the brokenhearted, to proclaim freedom for the captives, and release from the darkness for the prisoners, to proclaim the year of the Lord's favour, and the day of vengeance of our God, to comfort all who mourn, and provide for those who give and... I can't read tonight, I'm terrible, aren't I?
No, you're not, brother.
Where am I? To provide for those who grieve in Zion, to bestow on them a crown of beauty, instead of ashes, the oil of gladness, instead of mourning, and a garment of praise. Instead of a spirit of despair, they will be called oaks of righteousness, a planting of the Lord, a display of his splendour. I have got a very big heart for homeless people, okay? Some of the people we've actually met over the last few months would break your heart, okay? People that we've spoken to, people we've actually prayed with, and we cried ourselves, and we see a lot of people cry, big grown men that you think don't cry, they do cry, okay? But I'll go into a bit more to that later. I'm actually going to hand over to Amy first, and then it'll be Lynette, and then unfortunately for you guys, you've got me again after that, okay? So over to Amy.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can alternate with both mics if you want.
Does she want to go?
From the front, just where the front from people.
Be bold, be strong, for the Lord your God is with you.
As they said, I'm Amy, and I'm the president of Bournemouth Rotaract Club, and Lynette is our district chairman. First of all, we thought I'd just tell you a bit about what Rotaract is, and then we'll go on to what we're doing with the homeless in Bournemouth. So, Rotaract is an international voluntary organisation for 18 to 30-year-olds, and it's the younger version of Rotary. As part of the organisation, we organise and take part in various fundraising events for different charities, both locally and abroad, and we work on community projects, and our main intention is to make a difference to the lives of others.
I don't know if the photos are going to come up or not, but there's some photos with examples of the sort of things we do. But yeah, we do things like the Children Need Street Collections, where we all dressed up as characters from the Mad Hatter's Tea Party. We do quiz nights, we do fundraisers like the Back to Front dinner party, where we dress up back to front. You can see that someone dressed up as a woman in there that was quite scary actually, and granddads and things like that. So we all dress up back to front, we start with the dessert and finish with the starter, and it raises a lot of money for different charities. The next slide will show a few more of the things that we do. We had our sponsored Any-a-thon, which was a walk with a difference, where we got people to skate, cycle, run, anything to Bournemouth Pier, and they had to raise a minimum of £5. And we did that for 2 years, and in those 2 years we raised £7,000 for Julia's House Children's Hospice. We do community fairs and Christmas collections, where we go out knocking on doors with Pool Bay Rotary. There's some more on another slide. We help out at, we do gardening, Portfield School Science Garden is where Amy works with autistic children, so we're helping with their garden. We do other conservation work and tea parties for the elderly. Christmas meal for the elderly, and painting, and we've also done the shoebox appeal. So they're just a few examples of the sort of thing that we do. I've belonged to Rotaract for 7 years now. I'm actually the longest member that's been there. I joined because I didn't have many friends at the time, and someone I knew suggested that I go there. So I was extremely shy when I joined, and I wasn't confident at all, and I found speaking to people really difficult. But I grew in confidence by joining in with the activities that we do, and after a few years I was made president, and now I've been district chairman for nearly 2 years. Part of being chairman meant I had to go to Jersey to do a speech at the Rotary conference in front of 800 people, and it was the first time I'd really spoken in public, and I had to go on a plane, which I hadn't ever done before. So I was terrified as I suffer from anxiety, but God got me through it, and I think that Rotaract has really been God's tool of helping me to move forward in my life.
When I turned 18, Lynette tried to get me involved with Rotaract, but I was too shy and it just wasn't really the right time for me. But 2.5 years ago, I was very unwell with health issues including anxieties, OCD and social phobia. Lynette persuaded me to come along to Rotaract and join in properly this time, and through the organisation, God's really been at work in my life. It gave me something to focus on and has boosted my confidence a great deal. I've been able to use my OCD in positive ways, so get involved in organising events, and after 6 months I was voted president, and this is my 2nd year now. And I've gone from being completely OCD ridden, I was in hospital for 7 months, unable to touch anything or speak to anyone at all, and now I'm stood here talking to you and happy to So I know that God's always there to help me and He always gets me through. So as you've heard, that's what Rotaract does. It's really helpful in providing opportunities to develop self-esteem, build friendships and learn new skills. So now you've heard about Rotaract, we'll talk to you about what we're doing with the homeless. Our project's called Challenge Homelessness, and it began last September. Our aims for this campaign are to raise awareness of homelessness in Bournemouth, to provide food and clothing to those in need and learn from those on the streets what life is like for them. And we'd also like to work more alongside other services that support the homeless in our local area and spread our passion for the homeless to Rotary clubs across the country. Challenge Homelessness actually began in September as a one-off event to raise funds for Michael House, which provides supported accommodation for homeless people in Boscombe. Back in September, 6 Rotaractors were sponsored to spend 24 hours out on the streets of Bournemouth with nothing but the clothes on our backs and a sleeping bag in hand. And we set off at 9 AM and began with an induction at the Big Issue office. Myself and Lynette were able to have an opportunity to go out onto the streets, have our own pitch and try selling the Big Issue. And that was quite insightful really. We got ignored by people who just didn't want to know us really when we were out there. And I managed to sell 1 magazine, but that was to someone that I already knew, and Lynette managed to sell 2. But a lot of people just wanted to give us money. They didn't want to actually take the magazine, and that felt like we weren't doing our jobs properly if they weren't taking the product. So we kind of got an idea what people have to put up with out there on the streets when they're trying to rebuild their lives, trying to make some money, and it's not that easy for them. After we went on to a soup kitchen and we were given a hot meal and a lot of support from the homeless community. They gave us a lot of advice and information about what to be aware of when we were going to sleep out that night, and they were just really supportive of what we were doing for them to raise awareness of what they're going through.
Following that, we went to the YMCA where we were shown around and found out about the fact that you have to have a local connection to get adequate support. And then we went into Bournemouth and asked shops if they would give us any food because we didn't have any food with us, and most of them said no, but a few of the independent stores did give us some Cornish pasties and salads and sandwiches, so we had enough food for the 6 of us. We rummaged through bins for cardboard to sleep on, and then we took that to the church where we were sleeping out at. We were sleeping out in the grounds. We set up our cardboard with 2 of us sleeping in the doorway, and the rest of us set up camp in a church shelter because we were able to remove the bins and get the covering. But it only covered us so much, and our legs were sticking out at the end. It was a long, cold night, and we were constantly on edge, and it was raining, and so our feet did get wet. About 11 o'clock, a homeless couple saw us, and they came over to speak to us. They had a dog that was running all over our sleeping bags and that, and it was quite unnerving because they had been drinking quite a bit, and we weren't quite sure what was going to happen, but it was all okay. And we gave them our leftover food, and we gave them a duvet to take away with them. Somehow the others managed to sleep, but me and Amy didn't actually sleep at all, apart from for about, well, it was probably about an hour in the end. We were very anxious, and you could keep hearing men walking by, and you just wondered if they were going to suddenly come in. And we also had to keep saving Amy from spiders that kept crawling in. It really gave us an insight into what it's like to sleep rough, but we only had to do it for one night, so we just can't imagine what it must be like doing it all the time and feeling on edge so much. Overall, our initial project was extremely successful and very insightful. We managed to raise £1,800 for Michael House. And following our sleep out, we had presentations at the Bournemouth Centre to raise awareness of homelessness in the area. We presented our findings of the previous 24 hours and also invited the big issue, the VCHA and other local homeless services to share what they do. The Mayor and Mayoress of Bournemouth attended, along with about 50 other people, to celebrate the good work of the local services. And the weekend was finished with our first Rotaract soup kitchen, which had about 40 homeless or vulnerably housed people come along to.
Following our experiences from Challenge Homelessness, God really put the homeless on our hearts, and we had a real passion to go out and do more for them. So in December, I organised alongside Rotaract a Christmas meal for the homeless at the Bournemouth Centre in Boscombe. We fed around 50 rough sleepers, sofa surfers and vulnerably housed individuals. They had double helpings of a traditional Christmas dinner, and Father Christmas made an appearance as well and gave hats, scarves, gloves, socks and food parcels. And there was just a really lovely atmosphere, and one man said it brought a tear to his eye because he'd been disowned by his family, and it just meant so much to feel welcome and cared for and to have a Christmas card and present to take away to open on Christmas Day. So that really touched us to know that we were making a difference to them. And again, having spent more time in their company, we felt driven to do more and managed to set up our own soup kitchen. Soup on Sundays was set up as a trial during this February and March, and it's steadily grown. The first Sunday we did it, we had only 8 people turn up, but today was our 5th week, and we've got about 30 people now that come. And at the moment, we're based at the Bournemouth Centre in Boscombe, but that's quite a way out for rough sleepers who are in the centre of Bournemouth because they're weak, they're not very well, they'd have to carry all their belongings to us. So currently we're really providing more for the vulnerably housed people. What we'd like to do is provide more for the rough sleepers. So we're hoping to get a venue come the end of March and continue more central to Bournemouth, but that's something we really need to pray for the provision of that. We definitely really want to run the soup kitchen all year round because it's meeting a need and it's so appreciated by the people that come along, and God's also blessing us through it. With my obsessive compulsive disorder for 6 years, I've been unable to handle food at all, make food for myself, but now I've sort of use this as motivation to help other people, and I'm in charge of the cooking, so this miracles are happening for me. Out of everything we've been doing though, what we really look forward to is the Friday night outreach that we've been starting. It started 5 weeks ago, just with Lewis saying to us, would we come out with him on one Friday night to take some food out to people that we found sleeping rough and to find out their views of life living on the streets. It was going to be a one-off. We met 8 people that first night, giving out hats and scarves as well as food.
And since then we've gone out every Friday night with food parcels, soup and hot drinks and warm clothes if we've got some with us. So far on those nights, in the last 5 weeks, we've met 34 people that are sleeping rough. And this is something that myself, Lewis and Amy do because we want to do it. It's not with Rotaract or anything, but we have invited some Rotaractors out. We don't want more than 4 of us at a time, so it'll be the 3 of us plus a Rotaractor if one wants to come out with us.
The first night that we went out was the coldest. It was -8 degrees, and it was a real eye-opener to us. The first rough sleeper that we found was a lady without shoes. She was shivering and crying with a can of alcohol in her hand. And Lewis knew her from his days on the streets, so I think that helped her to accept help from us. And we sat with her outside initially and listened as she spoke of her life and how she wanted to be dead. And that was quite emotional for us, quite an insight into what it must be like for people living out on the streets. And she was just at such a low point in her life. She could see no future, and she's got no local connection to the area, so she can't really access the local services. So she's left sleeping in a car park. She had sopping wet clothes, no food, and that's just normal life for her. She told us her experiences. Her blankets had been set fire to whilst her and her boyfriend were sleeping, and they didn't wake up because they were unconscious from drinking alcohol to get off to sleep in the cold. They've had strange men just stood watching over them when they've woken up. And we've heard from others too who have been spat at, urinated on, punched, shouted abuse at, and had their heads kicked in and all sorts, just whilst they're trying to sleep and when they're not causing any problem to anybody. So it's a whole other world out there on the streets, but what we've heard has made us even more passionate about helping these people, and we really want to try and just provide for them and show them God's love. This particular woman is someone that we see each week now, and despite all she's been through, and her boyfriend too, they bless us so much every time we see them because they're always so happy and they make us laugh, and it's just really lovely to see them, and they appreciate our provision and knowing that we care. I think it's been a real witness to them of God's love. After 5 weeks of doing this so far, we've experienced insight into varying degrees of homelessness as well. There's one man who's slept rough for 16 years, but he chooses not to accept help. Another man finds living on the streets is an easier life. He doesn't have to pay bills, he can get food from soup kitchens, so he's quite happy, he feels quite safe. But there are a lot of people like this couple that are desperately in need of help. They don't want to be on the streets, and because of not having a local connection, they're not able to access that help. And they've had lives where they have paid bills and provided for themselves, had a regular income, and they're desperate to get back to that. So that's something that we lift to God every time we go out there with them, and just pray for that provision for them, that they can get their lives back on track. At the beginning of the year, I spoke to Amy about the verse from Matthew 25:40, which says, "Whatever you did for one of the least of these, my brothers, you did for me." And I said that this should be our focus for the year because of the fact that we really wanted to do all this work with the homeless. And what we're doing means that we are able to focus on that. The people we meet when doing the outreach are struggling with addictions, ill health and mental health problems. I had one man hug me a few weeks ago. He just literally wouldn't let go. He was on drugs at the time, but he said, "Please pray for me." And he literally begged me to pray for him. He said he's got all those addictions, and he spoke of the devil's hold in his life and how he's done things with Ouija boards and all this sort of stuff. And the wonderful thing about what we're doing with the outreach is that we're able to actually, we kneel down on the street just wherever these people are with the ones that accept it, and we can pray for them. On Friday night we prayed with 3 different lots of people. One was in the car park with Natalie and Andreas, the people that Amy was talking about, and 2 people that were with them, and we all just sat down on their duvet, held hands and prayed. And we prayed with another lady on the street where all the bars and clubs are, and because her health is very bad, so we just knelt down with her and prayed. And it's so good that these people are even accepting it, because they're not all Christians, they don't all believe.
And one man on Friday as well, we prayed with, he said he's an atheist, but afterwards he said that was so nice that I was prayed for, and it was the first time he had had someone pray for his sister for years, because he asked us to pray for his sister. So this just shows what God can do, and that he loves these people that the majority of society just don't want anything to do with and want to avoid. And we're able to show them his love. And they tell us it's about more than the food, it's about they feel that they're worth something, that people just come out to speak to them and just spend a bit of time with them. So everyone we've met has been friendly and appreciative, and I'm really pleased that we're able to get out and meet them all.
Without these girls, the stuff that I've done these last few months, I wouldn't have been able to do. Okay? To say they've got big hearts is an understatement. They're probably two of the kindest girls I've ever met. Okay? And like I said earlier, it's an honour to actually go out with them every Friday night and be a big part of what they do. I've actually personally benefited from some of the fundraising they do, because like I said at the start, I'm actually in Michael House, okay? Basically, well, but just over 20 months, or just under 20 months ago, I was sleeping in a church doorway in a church in Bournemouth, okay? After losing my flat for 3 years. I was drunk, smelly, dirty, wanting to kill myself. Okay. And I had people come up to me from the church, talk to me, and just like say to me, why are you out here? And it's a good question. And I was asked that same question the other day by someone. Why was I homeless? And I couldn't answer it. I didn't know. I didn't know whether I wanted to be homeless. I didn't know whether I wanted help. I didn't know who to turn to. I'd had experience of God in my life before, but I always thought that God didn't want to know me, which obviously is a bit of a lie really, isn't it? You kind of like love it a little bit. Someone said to me once, how much did God love you? And I said, well, I don't know. And they said, well, you did that and died for me. And I thought, wow, okay. Anyway, before I come on about what I do with the homelessness, I just want to share a little bit about me. Okay. I actually come off of this estate.
Woo!
Okay.
Good breathing.
Okay.
Good breathing.
Oh, well, yeah, of course. Okay. I was born in 1972. My first ever home was over in Muddyford. And then my very early childhood I spent in Everstrade. And then up until the age of 12 years old, I lived at 36 Somerford Street. Okay. My family are all from Christchurch.